Hi, everyone. We will start the session in a minute or so. Hello, everyone. Welcome to NABT's Community Conversations. And thank you so much for joining because we are kicking off our 2022 Community Conversation series just now. And this webinar is hosted by NABT's two-year section. And we're so excited to launch this webinar. And our fellow officers, our Vice Chair, Carla Fuller from Stella and Charles Gutman Community College, New York, Secretary Cleo Roll from Capital Community College, Connecticut, and I'm Sheila Vemu, the current chair of the section from Wabansie Community College, Illinois. Just some few key webinar concepts. Closed captioning is available for everyone. We will have the chat feature on because we want to promote some conversation. Gita will be very excited to get some live conversations to answer. And this session is also being recorded. And the best thing is the recorded version of this webinar will be available on the NABT platform under the events page, under workshops and webinars page. And we feel that the link should be available by the end of this week. So we want you all to know that this webinar will be available for you to share with others who are not able to join, but are very interested in seeking out the knowledge and reflecting on the practices that Gita is going to be talking about. The topic for today's webinar is equity, undergraduate research and high impact practices as levers of change. I want to take a few minutes to introduce our today's speaker, Dr. Gita Bangera. For many of you in the world of higher education, Dr. Bangera needs no introduction, as she is a champion of two-year community college issues, especially with a lot of resilience and passion. So Gita is now the Senior VP at Northwest Commission for Colleges and Universities, but until recently, she was the first Dean of the Connected Learning Division at Bellevue College, where she also founded the Rice Learning Institute. For many of you, Rice brings high impact practices such as research projects and service to all students across all disciplines. She was one of the ones who really helped it develop from concept to successful implementation. She has been very instrumental in creating a community of practice of faculty and staff in bringing high impact practices into community college classroom with the ComGen project, which is now a statewide undergraduate research consortium project. These are all NSF funded. She's a working group co-lead at the ASCN Accelerating Systemic Change Network and an Aspen Institute Rising President's Fellow. And with no further ado, I really want to welcome Gita. and Dr. Bangera, as we call her, with a lot of love and excitement. And for those of you who are joining us right now, this webinar is presented by NABT, two-year section. And let's begin the show, Gita.
Well, thank you, Sheila. I go by Gita. The only time I say Dr. Bangera is when I feel like I need to get somebody's attention. But Gita is just fine. And I am so excited to be here, Sheila, and I have been engaged at the ASCN work for a while, and it's been wonderful to connect with her on and put this together. And Carla Fuller is I'm a blast from the past for Carla, because she and I worked at Bellevue College many years ago. So very excited to be here. I'm going to start. I want to start by saying, introducing myself. My name is Gita Bangera. So few aspects of myself. I go by, I use she, her pronouns. I'm an immigrant. I'm a first generation college graduate. And by all rights, I should not be here given where I started my life. So I want to give that perspective because it explains my why. And I think it explains the why for a lot of you who are so passionate about undergraduate research. I also want to start by acknowledging that where I live and work is the land of the Duwamish people, the Coast Salish people in Seattle, Washington, and in the Northwest. So let me start with giving you kind of a scenario. You are a brand new tenure track faculty member. You are starting to teach this weird undergraduate research course. You've managed to convince 10 brave or foolhardy students to sign up for your course. And you're about 3 weeks into your course, in your 12-week course. And one of the students walks out of your class to the dean's office and tells the dean, "This course is a disaster. I'm quitting." I want you to keep that picture in mind. That was me a little more than maybe about 13, 14 years ago. So I want to give you that sort of a scenario when we talk about what are the challenges you face. Okay. Now, keep that in mind. And I'm going to start with a couple things. I will come back to the story in a few minutes. So let me share my screen. I promise the slides are only images and not a wall of words. There we go. Are you all able to see this? Okay. So I'm honored to be opening this community conversations, because to me, this is not a bigger group of people that I would rather spend time with than biology faculty trying to build undergraduate research programs. This is my people, my tribe, and I'm just thrilled to be here. So I like to start my presentations with this slide where we talk about who we have to thank. And all the stories I'm telling you, everything I'm going to share with you was not just me. I am only one part of this giant group of people who have allowed me to be part of it, who have given me the opportunity to co-create with them, if you will. So it does take a village, and that's probably one of the most important messages I can share with you, is that group of people that are going to help you build what you're trying to build. So the story is, as Sheila said, we're here to talk about undergraduate research as a tool for equity. And it took me the whole time that I've been engaged in the story about undergraduate research to realize this is the arc. This is where equity meets educational innovation. So if you think about research, in the past, research was the earliest time you experienced research was in graduate school. And then we started building it into some undergraduate programs where a brave faculty member decides to bring in a few undergraduate students to do some research in their class, in their lab. Then we had some honors programs that allowed some of the students who have, quote, proved themselves to do research. There were some REU programs, and then there are specialized advanced research courses. So my journey started with the specialized advanced research course in a community college. And it was made possible because we applied for an NSF grant. And as you all know, if you ever apply for an NSF grant, of course, the first time we applied for the grant, it did not get funded. Fortunately for me, I came from a research background where not getting funded on your first grant was not a big deal. So I applied again. And the reason we were able to apply again and succeed was that we went and developed a relationship with the NSF program officer, who fortunately for us happened to come back to the University of Washington. Okay. And you will see the theme that I just mentioned about the relationship come over and over and over again. I'm kind of giving away my bottom line here, but you will hear that again and again. So where does the question of equity come in? The thing with equity is, if a student has to go find the opportunity to do undergraduate research, if they have to apply for something, if they have to be selected for something, or if they have to be advanced in their academic career or in a particular major, we will never have equity. It will not happen. Because who will know to apply for these positions? Who will have the confidence to go approach a professor to get an undergraduate research spot? It will not be the student of color. It will not have been me, the first generation student. It will not be the female student. It would not be the LGBTQ student. None of them would have the confidence or would even know that it was important to do this, because they don't have somebody at home telling them how important this is. So where the way that, in my mind, we can reach equity is by getting to the end of this arc, that you have to have undergraduate research built into the classroom, and not just into any classroom, not in specialized courses, not in upper level courses, but in biology 101. That's the way that we can make undergraduate research accessible. And it has to happen at every type of institution. It has to happen at the community college, at the public institutions, private institutions, minority serving institutions, at all of them. That is the dream of equity. And undergraduate research, as you all know, I'm speaking to the choir here, is one of the best tools for bringing equity, for bringing students who don't always believe they can be scientists, to show them that they can be scientists, simply by showing them, giving them an opportunity to do research. So this is sort of the background of what I want to share with you. So this journey began, this is a DNA sequencer that we bought in 2008. Thanks to a relationship that I had with our then president, and I will talk a little bit more about her in a minute. So this is the course that I was talking about, where I had 10 students and one of them went and talked to the dean. You can see this is a space. The reason I use this picture is you can see how small this picture is. This was our research lab. This is a DNA sequencer in a hallway. And this is where we started. because we had managed to get the NSF grant, the president was willing to put in the money to help us buy a grant. That was about $58,000 at that point. And what I'm doing here is giving a presentation to the Board of Trustees and the Foundation Board. Okay. And I want to mention that here because this is one of the things that in terms of, okay, how do you scale up? You have to be willing to talk to anybody. I used to make a joke that if the pizza makers associations of the US wanted me to come talk to them about undergraduate research and they would give me money, I would do it. That's one of the biggest things that I had to learn, is that you should be willing to talk about your project to just about anybody. And you have to learn how to make it accessible to just about anybody. From there, we went to this beautiful research lab that, and it was called the Undergraduate Research Lab. At the beginning, it was pretty much just my little boutique 10 people, 15 people, 20 people course that could use the space. And then we expanded from there. And I love this picture because this picture represents one of the favorite things about the course. There is somebody in this picture who is 17 and somebody who is 67. That was the age range that we had in this course. And that was the joy of teaching this course. And then we went to here, which is the Rise Learning Institute. This is the lab space, which is incredible. If you see, we got to actually build this lab space. There are pods that go off of this main lab space that are for all kinds of undergraduate research, project-based learning, rocketry club, and there's actually also a molecular biology lab and a tissue culture lab off of this. So this is the growth. But don't be fooled by this. This did not happen overnight. As I said in my first slide, it takes a long time to get something like this done. And even more exciting, I had a previous slide that says Future is a statewide undergraduate research consortium. I am very excited to tell you right now that we actually have new NSF funding to build they're doing capacity building right now to build this undergraduate research consortium statewide. Okay. So how do you do this? And let me tell you that this is, I'm going to be very, very honest with you, and I will share all the sausage making with you, because this does not happen very smoothly or very easily. And I am under no illusion that I had some special skills that allowed me to do this. I was sharing with Sheila before we started the webinar that I was like a lot of, biology PhDs. My husband used to tell me that human relationships, selling a story, that is the key thing. And I said, no, that doesn't work in the sciences. We're all about data. It's not like that. I had to eat humble pie, not too late, not too long after that. So I want to talk a little bit in a bigger context of change theory. So when you go to, I could come here and give you a presentation like this person in the foreground here that tells you this very nice hierarchical structure. This is our organization. This is how it works, and blah, 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 blah. But what is really happening, and as you can see, most people see beyond that, and they look behind that facade and go, what's happening over here? What is all this mess behind here, right? But we never tell the story. We never tell that messy story behind the success story, right? So this is sort of what happens when we start a project. We start off with this idea that there's going to be a straight line. We have the strategic plan, we do all of it, we have all of the right images, all of that. And then this is what actually happens. It's very messy. It's the squiggle, right? This is actually what happens. And then when we start to go out and tell the story again, we totally lie. And we tell people like it as if it went in that straight line, right? That's never what happens. If any of you have been involved in any project, you know this squiggle is where it's all happening. This is exactly how it happens. And that was exactly what happened with us, right? And I will, I think somewhere I can share with you the link. We've written this up as a book chapter, and I'm happy to share that information with you. It was in the Transforming Institutions conference proceedings. But you can see there is always an up and a down and an up and a down. Things go well and then things go bad. And this is even a super simplified story. This is not even still the complete squiggle story, right? So what happened? We started off with that little tiny space, the DNA sequencer in the hallway. We were able to keep the student. I didn't get fired by the dean. And the main reason I didn't is because the dean knew me. I had a relationship with the dean. As I was writing the grant, as I was building that process, I had kept the dean informed. I had kept the dean feeling like they were part of our story, right? That was great. We kept building, and we ran the course for maybe about 4 or 5 quarters, a few years. And then, as NSF says, you have to go and disseminate. You have to get other people to do what you're doing. Otherwise, there's no point in giving you any money. So I walked out very confident because here was a fantastic course and it was all going to be great. And all I was going to do was go give a presentation to people, and I was going to have people lining up to sign up to teach this way. And I went out and gave presentations. I don't even remember how many places. And I would go to these conferences in the local area with biology teachers who would come and tell me, I love what you're doing, but I cannot do it in my institution. I felt like I had run into a wall, like nothing was working. So I had to think about, what is it? Why are they not wanting to do this? These folks are very passionate about this. They know about the value of undergraduate research. They know they want to bring this equitable thing. And I realized the problem was they did not have the resources that had just become available because of just circumstances for me. And that's where I learned the equity lesson, that if I can teach 10 students to do undergraduate research, there's no real point. Those students would have got that experience no matter what. So what am I doing? Well, what impact am I making? In order to get this to the students where we can really make an impact, we have to teach this in a regular classroom. And to do that, I had to figure out, how could we share this? How could we build this into a regular classroom? And that's where knowing who is smarter than you, who knows how to do things better than you, is really, really important. And I connected with somebody who is a genius at this. Her name is Kim Harrington. She's faculty at Tacoma Community College. And the second lesson was to know, what is it that you're selling? What is it that is the key piece of your program? And between talking with Kim and a few other people, like my good friend Cheryl, who is a genius at helping people figure out their own thinking, I realized I needed to distill what I was trying to do into one principle that I could share with all the faculty. And that was, So I had to distill down this idea of undergraduate research to one slogan. And I know slogans seem very cliched and glib, but it helps you focus. I brought that thing down to one statement: hands on, hands off. Hands on for students, hands off for faculty. Getting faculty to step back and let students take that risk and do that. As I said, Kim knew how to take what I was doing and turn it into a program for any course. So we started with the biology major cell and molecular course. And Kim was able to take all of the material, all of the curriculum that I had created for my boutique course and say, okay, we have to remove this and this and this, simplify this, and be able to bring it. It also allowed Kim to take this to her institution, so nobody could, think that it had anything to do with me or my skill. And Kim's an amazing teacher, so that was not, I knew she would be able to do it, and in fact, she did it way better than I did. So it allowed us to build, right? In the meantime, at my institution, I was able to, because I had been talking to the president at that time, and because the president was now we were getting some publicity in the local papers, in the we got noticed by Science, and we got an article written about us in Science. The president now wanted to give me more resources when I asked for more resources. So we were able to get that second lab that I showed you with where my students and I were. So that was the growth, right? Here is the thing. Now I got ambitious at this point, and I wanted to there was a new health science building being built, and we were going to have a whole, a half a wing of that top floor for an undergraduate research lab. So we could expand it, not just to biology, but to, chemistry and other fields as well. And that's where we ran into our first snag. I worked with the architects on the pre-design, got all of it ready to go. And one afternoon, the dean, this was a new dean who came in, called me into her office and said, sorry, that's not happening. The dean of health sciences said they want that space. And that was it. No questions asked, no explanation. That was it, Now, this is probably the biggest lesson I learned. I did get very angry, but I realized after I cooled down and had a conversation with my husband, who said, you cannot burn bridges. That person did that for a reason. And even if you don't agree with that reason, you cannot burn bridges. You have to think about how to move forward. And let me tell you, that was the biggest struggle, because you feel so frustrated as you worked so hard at something, and somebody in your mind, they did not take the time to talk to you. They were under their own pressures. That was one of the things, is to go, don't assume negative intention. Don't assume all of that. Keep your dream in mind. Keep your focus on the dream. And think, okay, this was a setback. How do I move forward? Kept moving on that, got more, we had now a whole bunch of biology major classes, teaching in our way. We also had now built a community of practice of faculty across the state that were teaching in this way. Well, I still had that dream of building that undergraduate research lab. And I got very excited because I got the news that our foundation was going to help raise $1 million for us to help build that lab. Got super excited, right? Okay, this is going to happen now. Well, a few months later, I found out, they decided not to do it. Again, it was the same thing. There was I didn't know as a faculty member, what were the pressures? What was the cause for why did they not do it? I was, furious. Again, like, what do you do when people say they're going to do something? Nope, didn't happen. Thought, okay, had to learn that second lesson again, that you just hold on to your dream. You don't know when it'll happen, right? At the same time, the exciting thing was the community of practice was continuing to build. But our second grant, which had allowed us to build that community across the state, was kind of starting to run out. And NSF funding doesn't last forever. You need something to keep building. Then out of the blue, every single time I got a chance to talk to people, I would talk to the board, I would talk to the president, I would talk to the vice president, I would talk to my dean about this idea of why undergraduate research was important, what it could do for our students, what it could do for the institution, why it would make their job easier, right? It was this nonstop. I used to say that you could wake me up at 3 a.m. and I would start spewing this speech to people. And that I got into that rhythm of being able to tell that story. It's really telling that story that's probably the most important thing. And as I was doing that, one of the board members, the trustees, got excited by this. And in 2014, they decided to put in $5 million. That was not just all for the undergraduate research, but there were other pieces to it, into building this space. And that's where, that's the lab that I showed you, the RISE Learning Institute space. And this line here, this is a little bit smooth line. Let me tell you that it wasn't this smooth. There's a lot of up and down, up and down, up and down in here, right? Because when we got this, there was some resentment about, well, how come you get to have this money, right? And we had to then go out and do that sales job again for why are we doing this? Why is this important? What is this doing for your students, for the faculty? And when you make that story about what it's doing for the students, faculty will come with you on that journey. And that's where the faculty then started to become part of that RISE Learning Institute. And we had a community, a faculty learning community within the institution that is now so strong that they will do this, they will keep this going no matter what happens. So that was the thing. And then we were able to branch out, not just into undergraduate research, but project-based learning, community engaged learning, service learning, and all of the others. But still there was this thing of, okay, fine, if a student gets lucky enough to come to Bellevue College, they get to have all this, right? But the equity question still remained. How do you do this, right? And that dream, that community of practice that we had developed with our ComGen project, with our sequencing project, was hanging out there, and they kept occasionally checking in with me to say, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? What can we do next? And I knew that this had to happen on a statewide scale for this to become sustainable, to become robust enough that no matter who comes or goes, it'll continue. And I started working with, in Washington State, we have what's called the State Board, which is the governing agency for all of the community colleges, community and technical colleges in the system. I found one person who was an ally there, who I was able to bring into the conversation. And fortunately for me, Washington State has a huge wealth of faculty who are engaged in undergraduate research. So I was able to harness that fantastic energy that was out there. And we got a few people together to form a steering committee. And we wrote an NSF grant to do this capacity building that I was talking about now. That is to say, how can we build a robust, long-term, process and structure for bringing undergraduate research into the classroom across the state of Washington in all the community colleges. And so the idea for that started happening sometime in 2017. And finally in 2021, we got the grant, and that is actually happening right now. Okay, so I wanted to give you a feel that there's a lot of ups and downs and lots of things that happen. So I know we're going to talk in the people who are interested in learning more about sort of, okay, how does this work? How do you build this? As I said, number one, get ready to talk anybody's ear off about your idea. Okay, and where does that come in? So this is again in the Transforming Institutions book chapter. And the idea for this, I have to tell you, this is not my theory. The idea of the squiggle, the idea of the adaptive networks and the hierarchical networks, this all comes from the work of Leith Sharp at Harvard. I kept trying to get her to write something up, and she's too busy saving the world. And so I thought I should get this out for people to know. So what does this mean? So this Leith talks about two different structures that exist in an institution. The adaptive networks are people like us, faculty members who know what needs to be done, who are in front of the students, who know about what needs to happen in order for change to take place. And they're the ones who know where the problems are and where the solutions are, right? The adaptive network knows how to do intrinsic engagement and has the creativity to solve problems. And then there's the hierarchical networks, and these are the people we love to hate, right? And I went from one group to the other over my course in higher education. The hierarchical network, these are the people with positional powers. This might be your dean or your vice president or the president or the board. They are there because they're there to keep the trains running on time. That's a big piece of their job. They have to make sure that they are providing that guardrail so that things just don't go all over the place. Either group by itself would not be able to accomplish change. It would not be able to make things become part of the institution. Your idea is brilliant, but it needs to become part of the structure of the institution for it to be robust and for it to actually bring the impact that you're looking to cause. And the hierarchical network has the information, the resources, and they're the ones who can give you the green light to make that happen. So to make that work, you have to get these two groups working together, right? So the adaptive network, the people who have the creative ideas, they can create the ideas, they can do the problem solving, they can do the prototyping, they can get a little bit of funding and do a pilot. You can learn by doing, you can figure out what the solutions are. What this does is it takes the risk out of the problem. It helps the institution be able to then take that to scale, right? And in order to have that, you need to have an ally in the hierarchical system, or multiple allies or champions even. And that's the key piece, is how do you build that, right? Finding the people. And let me tell you, it becomes a question of numbers. You keep trying. You try one person, they're not interested, you try another person, and the same person who may not be interested today may become interested tomorrow because something has changed in their world, right? But the system, the hierarchical system, the folks who have the resources could help, align with the mission of the institution, and then help to build that. So this is the link over here for the book, and I can put it in the chat. So what have I learned? All this story, all of this, what is it that I have learned from all of this? Relationships, relationships, relationships. That's really the key. Whether or not you think about it, you are always selling your idea. Sheila and I talked about Daniel Pink's book, To Sell is Human. And let me tell you, as a microbiology PhD who had done a few postdocs and was so steeped in research, if somebody had told me that when I started teaching that I would be selling, I would have run away from the whole thing. Because we all have this notion of, when we think of selling, we're thinking of some guy in a loud sports jacket trying to sell you a car. But that's not what it's about. Selling is really about building relationships. So I have a few pictures that are repeats, that some that are new. This picture was the launch of our undergraduate research program. This was our former president. This was our grant writer. These were the faculty members that I started this project with. These two folks in the back here were this is my PhD advisor who helped me get the grant, helped me get the project that we could use in our undergraduate research. These were my wonderful, fearless students who started with me with no idea what they were getting into. And every one of those relationships was important. That's it. Without those relationships, I would not be able to do any of it. This picture I want to show you again, because this was the foundation board and the board of trustees. If they hadn't known about this, there's no way that this would have gone forward. And I took every opportunity to present wherever I could, especially to the board, to say, what is this doing for our students? Because their goal is, does this help our students? Does this help them with graduation? Does this help them with does it help retain our students? I also had to develop a relationship with my students. And remember that story of the student who walked off and told my dean that it was a disaster? Well, that student didn't come back. But what it taught me, because I was going through tenure, and I knew that if I had unhappy students, I may not get tenure, and then my dream of undergraduate research would go up in a puff of smoke. So I had to learn very quickly that I had to tell my students what I was trying to do. Why was I doing this? Why was I teaching in this way that was driving them crazy? What was the goal behind it? This was not just some torture method that I had devised. This was for their particular reason. I learned to articulate the need. How am I helping your career? What am I doing for you? Why is this important? What are you learning here that you won't learn from a standard classroom? And having to do that under the fear of my tenure process was really, really helpful, because when I started bringing this to other faculty, and especially adjunct faculty who had the risk of losing their jobs if their students were upset, I was able to share that with them. How do you show your students the value of what you're doing? And that became a very important piece of our collective community of practice, to say, this is how you build it. And Finally, I developed a relationship with all these wonderful faculty across the state, because this is how you build that strong group that will continue the work beyond what you can do. You are one person, you can do one little thing, but this group can take it to everywhere. Now I'm no longer at that position. The grant is gone going. I have this fabulous group of people who just were running with it, and they're going to take it places I couldn't even dream of. So that's the beauty of that. So it's all about the relationships. Other pieces that are important: anytime you get a chance to bring positive attention to your institution, take it. Talk to, if they work with your institutional advancement people, with your marketing people. Be willing to go give interviews to people. It feels weird and awkward, and none of us as scientists are prepared to do this. It just feels very strange. The good news is the more you do all of these things, the easier it gets. Just grit your teeth and do it the first few times, and then slowly it gets easier, and then you may even start enjoying it at some point. Your students are your best ambassadors. Get your students to talk, and it's just amazing. They will melt the hearts of anybody who's standing in your way. It's just there's so much power in the student voice. So, lessons learned: start where you can and build. It does take time. Relationships. I cannot stress that enough. Your students are your best ambassadors. You need to think about each stakeholder. What do they need? What are you bringing to them, right? Administration wants you to start doing this so that you have some money. You're bringing in some money. Even a small amount tells them you're not just going to go ask for more money. You're not just coming in to ask, you're bringing them something. Anytime you can get your school seen in a positive light by the general public, that helps folks in the administration. Faculty, think about other faculty. You're trying to get other faculty to come on board. Make it easy for them to adopt your idea. What can you provide them? So that our whole program we called it plug and play, so that they could just take what we have created and plug it into the classroom. How can you make it easy? To the students, talk to them about what kind of skills they're learning. It's very important. We don't necessarily think students should know, but they don't know why this is important. It's very important to articulate that. For the funders, show them that you can create some sort of a sustainable thing, so that their investment in your program is going to bear more than, it's going to be more than just one program or project. So trying to find that everybody wins idea. Okay, so I will actually stop here, and I want to reiterate the big group of people that I thanked right at the beginning, because this does take a whole village, and the more people you can get to go with you, the better. I have some data slides, but I'll get to that if you have, when we get to questions. So I'll stop sharing. How are we doing on time?
You're doing great. Thank you, Gita, for a wonderful presentation. We do have some questions in the chat from the audience. And one of them is your statements about who has access and what do we mean by access to undergraduate research really resonated with the question. How do we help some of our more traditional colleagues who get out of the mindset that students need some sort of qualification, like they need to have prior experience, Dean's List, honors classes, GPA? How do we get out of that mindset, and how do we persuade our colleagues to have enough so that we can change this?
Yeah. It's a great question, and we ran into that too. What's exciting is to take the few people who are willing to do this. And what we did was we did that with the people who were willing to do this. And at the end of the quarter, we would have a poster session in the hallway for every faculty member who could walk around to see what we were doing. The only way to change their minds is to show them what the students can do. And that was very powerful, because people who started off saying, well, I don't know if my students can do this, they saw students who were in a lower class than theirs do it. When they saw that, it was very hard to argue that their students can do it. And it looked like they were not really believing in their students. So making that, it's again about making it very explicit, right? When they saw the posters of the students in Biology 101 in the hallway that were doing work that was clearly, just way beyond what you expect a Biology 101 student to do, that caught them going. It has another piece of it, which is the idea that everybody wants to belong to an exclusive club. If you try to get people in, it may not seem like, but if you have your little cohort of faculty who are doing this, and you're having this great time, with your students, it slowly brings people on board. So you don't try to convince them, you just say, it's okay, we're going to do this and we're going to have a great time. And it slowly brings people into the fold.
That's very good. And we have another question that sort of lines up with your basic tenet of this talk. It says that I feel like my colleagues and I get caught in problem-solving loop. How do we gain momentum to move the ideas up and about?
Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah, it's so the question becomes, okay, what is the problem you're solving? Right? If it's, and I wish we could be in person, then I could go back and forth with you, because I'm very curious to know how you're defining problem solving, because all of this is problem solving. The question is, if you are trying to solve a problem of access, if you can think about, okay, what are the, do a brainstorming, go, what are 5 different things we could try, and go completely nuts. Don't try to just solve in the regular context, but think about it in the context of what is the way that you can build what you're trying to build in a different way. Maybe think about moving like water, right? Move around the stones. What's a different way I could come at this problem? And as I said, it would be great to have a back and forth actually to talk about what are the problems that you might get stuck in. But that would be my kind of overarching thing, is to think about it from, can I come at it from a different angle? Can I get a different ally, a different champion? Can I get somebody else to go with me? Can I bring a student to this discussion?
So there's a note from Carla to everyone, and just to add to what she had, there's a question that says, if a professor is ready to step up and become a change agent at their institution, where should they begin? I mean, we understand we should begin, but where would be some spaces to begin?
Great, yeah. So when we were starting this thing 15, 20 years ago, or not 20 years ago, 15 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff out there. There was some, but not a lot. Today, there's a lot of potential undergraduate research opportunities that you can think of. The simplest way to start is to approach one of the big programs that are available nationwide. There is the GPAC, which is the genomics group. There is the CPhages program. There is so there are lots of big programs where you can simply take a piece. There's a PAIR project from Purdue. You can take a small piece and bring it to your classroom. That gives you, it's the same thing like we tell our students, start small, build from there. In taking those programs and bringing it into your classroom makes it so that you're not having to risk a lot of time and money. right? And you can build it into any class that you're teaching. So you're not asking your administration for any new money. When you can show that, the piece after that is once you've done it, talk about it to everybody. Get your students to talk about it to their other professors. Get your students to go talk about it to the dean. Make a presentation at any place that you can, to your department, to your college, in the faculty, teaching and learning center, right? That builds that positive momentum. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot out there that you can start with. But the big thing is then start selling it at your institution. That's a very important thing, because that's when you can then build out and regain momentum.
Okay. Thank you, Gita. There's another one that's coming through, and all faculty and institutions love assessments because that's our keyword. So we should probably in some ways find ways to assess these innovative practices that are effective in our classroom. Do you have any go-to assessments so that it can be a plug and play and faculty don't have to innovate the wheel?
Yes, actually, assessment is your friend in this case, because assessment allows you to create these beautiful graphs that you can then take. Let me share just, quickly the graphs that I was going to show you, that your students now aim for bigger, higher degrees. This is the intended degree went up after they went through our undergraduate research program. You can show that undergraduate research closes equity gaps. We can show that undergraduate research actually impacts students of color more than other students, right? So did I stop sharing? Okay. So 2 pieces. This is assessment of the program itself, how it's impacting students. Assessment of student learning, one of the most powerful things we found, and you can email me and I can connect you with the people who can share the assessment. One of the most powerful things we found is not just assessment that you do, but students' self-assessment. That was one of the most powerful things. And then when that allows you to tell the story of what the students said about their own learning. So we had assessment tools that we developed, and like I said, I'm happy to share the links for that, but also student self-assessment. It's also one little benefit as a faculty member is when the students do the self-assessment, the amount of grading you have to do goes down. It's a very beneficial thing, and I'm happy to connect you with the tools for that.
That's good. So we look forward to those tools, and we have a couple of minutes before we end our webinar. And there is one last question that's coming through. And I think you addressed that a lot in your presentation, but maybe you could just sort of hone in on it. Sometimes this work can be very exhausting, which you actually talked about, but particularly for young faculty who has limited time and resources, what would keep them motivated, just like it kept you motivated to do this work?
Yes, that's a really important question. I used to say this to the faculty in my faculty learning community: be very selfish. Only pick projects that you are crazy about. Pick projects that you're passionate about and that you would do no matter what. It's very easy to fall into the thing of saying, well, we should do whatever the students want, but the students are not the common thread running through this. If you love doing DNA sequencing work, that's what you should go with. If you love looking at bugs, that's what you should do. Pick something that you would love to do no matter what. It's good to go with the noble idea of what should be done, but in the end, it's your passion that keeps you going. So pick things that you would do, you would love to do no matter what. Even if you're not getting paid for it, you would do it, and bring that into this process, because that's what keeps me. That was what kept me going when things didn't work. Is I was so interested in this, I wanted to do this, and that kept me going.
That's great. Gita. We have one more last one. I think we have 30 seconds. So you have spurred in a lot of conversation in people's minds. So this is the last one. I'll keep it to last. Do you have any advice for hosting an undergraduate research symposium? What would you like to suggest, and what would be some ideas?
Great. Again, start with what you have. Our first undergraduate research symposium, we can call it that, was basically I had any faculty member who was doing undergraduate research. I said, let's pick a day at the end of the term, and we will have all of our students put their posters up on the wall in the hallway. And I invited all the faculty, in fact, sent an email to the deans and everybody else to say, our students are going to present their research, come and meet them. And the students just had to be at their poster during their hour or two of their class session. It's that simple. You can start there and then you can build it. Now we have something called Making Learning Visible, where it's grown so much we don't know where to put it anymore. It's just grown, right? Start with your students. The thing is to not just do it inside your classroom, do it in the hallway, do it where other people will see it. That's really the visibility piece is the most important piece, is getting other faculty, administrators, other students seeing the work that your students are doing and celebrating it. Bring cookies, that always helps.
Thank you. We are right on the dot. And thank you so much, Gita, for this fantastic webinar. You gave us all the tools that we need, the encouragement and the push, so that we could all move forward and be change makers in our own realm of influence. Thank you very, very much from the NABT to your section for accepting this invitation. And a world of applause through Zoom.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to put in a plug for the ASCN network. Please join the ASCN network, because you will connect with other change makers. Thank you for the opportunity. This was wonderful.
Thank you again, and see you soon.